Acknowledgement does not mean agreement. So if your husband says something that you don't agree with, you can still acknowledge what he said. You can still point out what he's talking about, but it doesn't mean that you agree, and that's okay. We have to stop being a society where if we don't agree with one another, that means we're all of a sudden enemies. That is horrible. That is where there is division. The enemy divides and conquers because you don't have the emotional stability and the spiritual maturity to realize that people are allowed to think differently than you. It's not about uniformity, it's about unity. We don't have to look like identical robots and wear the same thing and think the same thing and walk the same way. You can be an individual according to how God has called you and still be united with others who are on your team, right? You and your husband are on the same team. So good morning, ladies. We just wrapped up our 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time coaching call that we do twice a month in the Wife Revival program. And we just finished talking about the 7 steps of how to have a difficult conversation with your husband. So we all have those topics in our marriages where, if you talk about this, the conversation can get escalated. And so we went through some really good some really good steps and tools to use so that those conversations can remain calm, can remain centered on God, where you can eliminate division and actually get results. And so if you want the replay of that is inside the Wife Revival program. It is under the module that is called Establishing Opportunities. So in that section, we're talking about putting action steps and actual things into place so you can improve marriage and your connection with your husband and winning him over to being the godly man that God desires him to be and that you desire him to be, right? So we know that in our program, we focus on 1 Peter 3, which tells us that it is our conduct that can win our husbands over. So this video, what I want to do is I want to discuss 4 tips to make sure that the outcome of your difficult conversation is successful. The main thing that we kind of covered this morning, and I just want to touch on it right now as well, is that the majority of the work in any type of conflict conversation is the work that you do within yourself. We have been seeing already in the program, so many marriages have just totally changed. And you wives have even shared with me during our calls how implementing the things that you have learned have totally flipped your marriage, and you now have a more fulfilling, happier marriage. And so it's working. Working on us is the bread and butter. It's the gold, right? This is what we need to do to actually see change, work on ourselves. So in having these difficult conversations, you have to first start with you. You have to stay in charge of your thoughts and your responses, your triggers, making sure that you're keeping your emotional level secure. Keep it level, keep the level leveled. Okay, don't let your emotions run with you, but you stay centered on Jesus. You stay centered on your purpose of the conversation and what it is that you hope to actually resolve. What is the overall point? What's the purpose? What's the resolution? What do you want to get to? What's the accomplishment that you want to reach at the end of this difficult conversation? When you stay centered in on that, you stay centered on purpose, you stay focused on the outcome that you desire, and always stay focused on, is this pleasing Jesus? How can I please Jesus? Asking God to help you in the moment when you feel you might be triggered or you feel your emotions getting worked up. Constantly staying in that mindset where, Jesus, I need you. I need you to really help me in this moment. Help me with my facial expressions. Help me with my tone. Help me with my words. It's constantly staying centered so that the conversation does not get derailed and it doesn't end up in a huge explosion. Inquiry, which means ask. always be willing to ask instead of assume. So when the conversation begins to get hyped up, begin to learn as much as possible about your husband in that moment. Ask him questions. Don't assume, don't get worked up, but instead become curious. Find out, okay, what did I say that is making him act this way? Or is there something that I did not explain? Or instead of getting worked up, if he gets worked up, keep yourself calm and collected. And then you start to think in your mind, okay, where did this go wrong? Let me ask some questions. You say, did I say something that offended you? Did I come across as if I was degrading you? Do you feel attacked? Or can you help me to understand what you mean by saying XYZ? Can you help me to understand why you believe that? Or can you please talk to me about this part right here that we're not clear on this? Always go back to establishing clarity so that the conversation does not go left. You want to keep things certain. How can you understand how this is affecting your husband? When you have an understanding of him, he feels respected. He feels honored. He feels like you really are trying to hear him out. And in turn, it automatically opens his heart to want to give the same to you. So really, you are setting the tone, which is what 1 Peter 3 tells us, that by our conduct, we can win our husbands over. So really, it's your ability to influence the atmosphere, right? And there is also a Spice Wife a podcast episode on that, where you can go and listen to so many episodes where we talk about the bedroom and we talk about marriage and all of that. But there is an episode that talks about, your influence. Like, what type of an influence are you leaving? What type of atmosphere are you setting? And so take some time this week to go and listen to that episode. All right. Make sure that you are in tune with watching his body language. That is a part of being inquisitive and inquiring what's going on and asking the right questions instead of making assumptions. Pay attention to his body language when he seems to tense up or when he gets uncomfortable. Just kind of pay attention to what he might not be saying clearly. And again, ask questions. Don't assume. If you think that, oh, that made him mad, that's an assumption. Ask him, did I upset you in saying that? Or can you explain to me, did that make you uncomfortable, or did that challenge you, or how did you process what I just said? I just want to make sure that we have clear understanding. And then when you ask, make sure that you are letting him finish. Let him explain himself fully. Don't think that, oh, well, I need to cut in here because I need to put my point here. No, just let him express himself and try to learn as much as you can in this phase of the conversation. And then you'll get your turn, but just don't rush his. You absolutely will get your turn, but allow him to get it all out. Okay? Acknowledgement. So in this hard conversation, you're practicing, right? So we talked about that in our coaching call this morning, which I have already uploaded into the program for you. If you want to go back and listen to that, that is going to be under the module Establishing Opportunities. And the video is in the lesson that is called Better Communication. So again, you can go back and watch what it was that we talked about in getting ready for these hard conversations, right? So acknowledgement means that you are showing that you've heard and understood your husband. Okay. You want to make sure that he is feeling like you are present, not that you're there to argue, but that you're there to understand, that you're there to have a mutual agreement so that you guys can truly reach a goal at the end of this, that you can overcome this wedge that's been in your marriage, this topic that just really causes things to be frustrating and stressful. No, don't let this linger. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. Your husband will not change unless he sees that you see where he stands. He won't open up until he gets a confident feeling that, okay, she hears me, she's acknowledging me, and I feel valued. Your husband needs to feel valued by you, and that will actually ignite him doing more and being more for you and stepping up to the plate that you need him to step up to. When he feels valued, he feels motivated, he feels encouraged, and it's almost like it's a spark for him to really be enthusiastic about what he's called to do as a husband. You know, it's one thing to know what we're supposed to do, right? The Bible says that the husband is supposed to do this and that, and the wife is supposed to do this and that. It's one thing to know it. It's another thing to be energized to do it, to be motivated to do it, to be encouraged and impelled to do it. And our behavior can help with that. So we can't just be people who say, well, it says that you need to do it, so do it. I mean, okay, I can understand that, but then you develop being a person who does things out of a grudge and kind of resisting doing it. And you don't want to do things just because it's given to you as a mandatory. You want to do what you're supposed to do with desire, right? You want it to be a celebration, not an obligation. You want it to be something that you look forward to. So our behavior and our conduct can really ignite that encouragement where it's not an obligation, but it's a desire. It's a want to. He wants to care for you. He wants to lead you. He wants to set better standards for your home and your marriage. And he wants to be the godly man that God wants him to be, because you make it so easy to do that, right? So make sure that you are acknowledging whatever it is that you can, including your own defensiveness, including your own ways of where you are making things difficult. Be strong enough and confident enough in your walk with Jesus that you don't feel acknowledging your wrongs now makes you less of a woman. No, or makes you less powerful. No, that's an insecure mindset where you think if I acknowledge my wrong, then now I am just not a good person anymore, or people are going to look down on me. No, you acknowledge your part with confidence and humility. You say, you know what? I need to say sorry because I took that in a very defensive way, and I kind of got offended by what you said, and defensive. I shouldn't have been so quick to respond in that way. I'm sorry. Be so secure in Jesus that you're able to apologize. People who can't say sorry aren't secure in who they are in Jesus, because you feel like saying sorry makes you less of a person. No, saying sorry and apologizing makes you more of a person. It makes you more trustworthy. It brings about respect and honor. It makes you a woman of value, which is what we want to be. We want to be that wife that is virtuous, right? Acknowledgement can be difficult if we associate it with agreement. Keep them separate. Acknowledgement does not mean agreement. So if your husband says something that you don't agree with, you can still acknowledge what he said. You can still point out what he's talking about, but it doesn't mean that you agree, and that's okay. We have to stop being a society where if we don't agree with one another, that means we're all of a sudden enemies. That is horrible. That is where there is division. The enemy divides and conquers because you don't have the emotional stability and the spiritual maturity to realize that people are allowed to think differently than you. It's not about uniformity, it's about unity. We don't have to look like identical robots and wear the same thing and think the same thing and walk the same way. You can be an individual according to how God has called you and still be united with others who are on your team, right? You and your husband are on the same team. So don't think that because you're acknowledging his feelings and his thoughts that you automatically agree with him. You can simply say, you know, I understand that what you feel is this. I understand that what you feel and what you want to do is XYZ. While I don't agree because acknowledge, right? State why you don't agree, but then also state, I am praying that, you know, God will help me as I submit to what it is that you desire for our family, right? And so doing that leads you to success in this hard time. Advocacy, which is showing support. Through supporting him, you can express what it is that you see from your perspective. So I understand that from what you've told me, I can see how you might be frustrated, or I can see how you are hesitant in doing it that way. So you're supporting him. But then on the flip side, you're also acknowledging and giving clarity to your own position. So you're not minimizing yourself, and that's where a lot of people get confused. They think that submission means that you have to totally become obsolete, that you don't have opinions anymore, and you're not able to give your say on things. That's not true. You do not become a doormat, but instead you learn how to be more supportive. And you still are going to submit to your husband because God gave him the authority, but you're going to express, from what I see and what I can understand is you want it to be this way because of XYZ. I just want to express that the reason I was saying it this way, or the reason why I was requesting it this way, is because da 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 da. So you support him, you acknowledge him, but then you turn around and you further confirm and clarify what it is that you were saying, while saying, I pray that, however God leads you in this situation, that we will reach a goal that pleases him. And then you leave it at that. So you've acknowledged what he wants, you've clarified your feeling, and then further you've closed it with stating that I honor you, I submit to you, and I pray that God will lead you in the decision. So you see how you're not bogarting and you're not demanding and putting your husband last and becoming this dominant wife that's not being biblical. Instead of doing that, you've acknowledged what he said, clarified what you would like to happen, and then at the end, you say, well, however God leads you, I will submit to that. And I'm praying that God will give you the right thing to do. And I know that he will, right? So you also end with confidence. I know that God is going to give you the right way to lead our family, and I'm going to trust whatever the decision is. And you're constantly in prayer, right? You're praying before, you're praying during, you're asking God to help you, because being a submissive wife is not possible without Jesus. It's not possible. You need him every step of the way. Make sure that you are speaking in favor of him and his stand while bringing clarity to your own. Speak in favor, speak highly of him. Don't make it sound like what he's deciding is irrational and that it's insecure. Don't cast insecurity. You need to cast confidence. You need to pass on and influence. Your attitude needs to influence the right type of an outcome. You need to approach him and talk to him as if he knows what he's doing and he's able to make the right decisions. Our husbands need our support. They need to know that we're with them. That makes them more secure and confident in what decisions that they have to make. It's not easy to have the weight of running and running the family and running things and really being that authority. Your husband needs your support. You guys really work together as one. And so acknowledging him and really favoring his thought processes, even if you don't agree, you can still acknowledge and favor him. And that's the actual problem solving, which is why you had the hard conversation in the first place, okay? You wouldn't have brought up the conversation unless you really wanted it to be resolved. So step 4 is problem solving. Ask your husband what he thinks will work. Whatever he says, find something that you like and then build upon that, right? Ask for his point of view and acknowledge that you can't do this without him. Acknowledge that it takes both of you. Acknowledge that you want his input on this, right? And when you do that, when you ask him for his point of view, it creates safety and it encourages him to engage. Because if you want your husband to lead, but then you jump up and you lead everything, well, he's going to back up and be like, well, all right, you want me to be the man that protects and provides, and you want me to be this superhero for you, but you never let me, So many of us wives who are learning to not be so dominant, we are realizing that we've been overstepping. We won't even let our husbands be the husband, right? Or at least let me say that was my experience. And a lot of you wives who God is sending to Spice Wife, it's been your experience too, where you're just naturally a strong woman. You're naturally dominant, naturally headstrong, and you can get things done on your own. But that goes against the biblical image of marriage. And we want to be biblical wives. So we're learning how to not overstep, not just Bogart and do our own thing. Begin to invite him to be the husband that you want him to be. Invite him to learn how to be the husband that deeply you desire him to be. God designed us to need a man who is strong and masculine and secure, who is a provider. You are designed to want to be taken care of by him because we were created to be a help that is meet for him. We're helping him. We are to be an asset of support. So in this point of problem solving, make sure that you are engaging in the fact that you want to build with him, not build for him, that you are here to be alongside him. You are one flesh. You're one flesh. You are in this together. So you want to make sure that you're brainstorming together, that you're continuing to ask questions. And if at any point in all of these steps, you find that the conversation is getting heated and that things are going left, always go back to step one, which is ask. Ask for clarity. Don't allow the conversation to just take off. Say, wait, hold on. We're getting off track. I'm sorry. What happened? Did I say something wrong? I didn't like that you said that. Hold on. We got to go back. Why did you say that to me like that? Why did you address me that way? Why did you say it that way? That makes me feel like shutting down. That makes me feel like we're not going anywhere. And I'm trying for us to really, really get a solution in this very hard topic. I want us to work together. Always go back to step one, asking. Don't assume. Don't run off with your emotions. All right? So recap, number one is be curious, inquiry, ask questions. Number two is acknowledge. Number three, show support, be his advocate. And step four, actually problem solve. The art of conversation is literally in practicing, actually acquiring the skills and the ease so that you're able to do this over and over and over again. Practice. So those are the 4 steps of how to successfully have a hard conversation with your husband. I will see you in the Wife Revival program and on the next coaching call where we are going deep and we are getting results. We have happier, fulfilled marriages. Make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you like the video and share it with other wives. I'll see you on the podcast, on the Spice Wife app, on the social medias, all of those places. I'll see you there. Until next time, stay spiced.